Hey, this is Aaron,
And this is Kristen.
and this is Drive Mode Show.
Woohoo! Hey, Aaron. What's up?
We got Jill with us over, I think.
Yay!
Today we're going to talk about the Rebelle Rally. You guys have finished. Um, you've hopefully got all the sand out of your boots, and
Mostly.
and the one spoiler I will give is that I did learn that not once during the entire 8 days was the word watermelon screamed at anybody.
No, it was not. It was not.
Pretty
It was not
impressive.
screamed.
Or even really uttered in any seriousness. I think we joked around a little bit with our watermelon safe word.
Yeah. When you
Jill, do
talk
you want to
about the
explain
Oxford
that?
comma, I was gonna say when you talk about the Oxford comma, I need to use the word watermelon. Yeah, no, because watermelon was our safe word, and so we decided that if throughout the rally, like one of us was getting like hangry, annoyed, frustrated, whatever, that we would say watermelon, and the other person would need to like back off. We would have like a timeout and take a moment and then regroup. And yeah, so your use of the Oxford comma is a watermelon worthy offense. I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah, but it's 2 against 1 in this case because
Don't
Aaron and
care.
I are both pro Oxford comma. We're
All
so
y'all need to
nerdy.
go take a timeout.
I just so everybody knows, on the invite for Jill to come to this, I made sure there were Oxford commas. At
Yes,
least
you
one. I
did.
think there was one.
I just want to say you guys are not adhering to AP style, and that is incorrect.
I
All right,
write
listen.
colloquially.
Doesn't
Well,
matter.
okay. And before we go any further
Yes.
Watermelon. No.
and not talk about Oxford commas anymore, we should remind people to subscribe to Drive Mode Show. So click that little button to get more news from us and fun interviews like this with the lovely and talented Jill Ciminillo, my Rebelle Rally partner. Whoop whoop.
Whoop. Okay, so to get started, just in case somebody's watching and they're not really up to speed, um, explain what the Rebelle is in the kind of the elevator version, and then the backstory of how you guys got into it. So, Kristen, if you could explain what the Rebelle is, and then the two of you could talk about the how you got together and how you got with Hyundai and all of this to get it going.
Okay. So the Rebelle Rally was in its seventh year for 2022, and it was founded by Emily Miller, an off-roading champion who trained under the legendary Rod Hall. She wanted to set up an off-roading rally just for women. And it started, with them. I don't even know what they did on that first rally, but from what I've heard from the people that have competed in all 7 of them, it was very different. It gets more and more difficult every year. But here's the thing about this particular off-road rally that's different from others is that there's no GPS, there's no navigation, there's nothing to save you. Well, I guess they could save us if we were really in trouble because we have a satellite phone for emergencies only. But other than that, they give us topographical maps, rulers, and a compass. Well, we buy those ourselves. We bring them along, and
They
they
give
give
us
us
the maps.
latitude. That's right. They give us the maps, and they give us latitude and longitude points every morning at about 5:30 in the morning. And we start plotting, and then we hit the road for about 10 hours a day for 8 days straight. We went for 1,600 miles. So, Jill, why don't you tell the story about how we decided to do this together and why we picked Hyundai?
Yeah. So let's rewind to 2020, pandemic, closed downs, all that kind of stuff. And Kristen and I are both automotive journalists, and I think you'd sent me a text message one night when I was in the middle of a cooking frenzy, and you're like, I miss you. And I was like, I miss you. And she's like, and I miss Alice, and I miss, Rebecca, and I miss Nicole. And I was like, we should just hop on a call. So we all hopped on a call together, Zoom, so we could just chat. And it became kind of a regular thing. We called ourselves the Fight Club because we were all kind of fighting through our own little personal things at that point, because, pandemic. And during that time, a couple of our friends had signed up for Rebelle, and Chris and I were like, well, we kind of want to do that. And so we just kind of noodled it a little bit. And then eventually it was just a much more concrete, you know what, we should do that together. And so born through the Fight Club. And then when we were talking about who we would want to target, we wanted to do something new. We wanted to do something unique. We wanted to do something, cool. And we both kind of came to Hyundai Santa Cruz because we're like, it hasn't been in the rally yet, and it's a really neat vehicle. And they're saying it's an adventure, kind of a lifestyle-y vehicle. And we just thought it would be perfect for Rebelle. And so we put our pitch together to Hyundai specifically for that vehicle. And I have to say, working with them was really amazing. They were great partners. And the Hyundai Santa Cruz did really well in the X-Cross class, or the SUV class. I think it was a fun thing to drive, and it was really cool. And I have to say, we got so many comments from people who were like, we were hoping this would come, and this is really cool, and you guys are doing so well. So it was a lot of fun, and Hyundai was a perfect partner.
They were, and that little Santa Cruz was so quirky and fun. It reminds me of a kind of like an El Camino, party in the front, business in the front. I don't know which is which, but it was a really
party
fun
all over the
vehicle
place.
to drive. And we get to work closely with the engineer, Eric Buxton, who spent a lot of his personal time just making sure that we had everything we needed. He approached Rally Innovations, who created this really cool front end and some tow recovery points, and the rack on the back that held our 70-pound spare tire and wheel, and our shovels, and our 4 Max-Trax traction boards.
Yeah.
I've seen pictures of you standing on the back of it, pulling those Max-Trax off and throwing them. And I think it was Jill in the front with the shovel, moving sand to try. As a kind of a side note, I did a thing at the Glamis sand dunes in California with Polaris, driving side by sides, and I heard from several pro racers. I rode with one and talked to 3 others, and all of them they're gearing up for the Baja 1000, and all of them were talking about the Rebelle and saying that is so much fun to watch, and that they wish there was a side-by-side class and that they would let dudes do it. Because they're
no dudes allowed.
Because they were all like, that is the kind of thing that, because they don't get to do that. The Rebelle isn't a race, it's a navigation challenge. And these guys, the closest they can get to that is maybe Dakar. And that's even then, it's not anything like it. So they were talking a lot about it. I was not surprised, actually, because these are people that watch racing and watch competitive events like this as part of their living. So it was pretty cool to see that. And then just watching you guys, seeing those daily highlights, I was like, see, they're getting there. It's happening, and I never actually, honestly, from the beginning, never expected you guys to not finish. I always assumed you would finish. So it was a question of how would you finish? Would the equipment make it? Would you make it? As far as how many points were you going to score? What,
would we still like each other at the end?
Right. We still talk to each other.
We do
already. Before this, we're a really good team up, though. You guys do really well together when you're together. I see you at events all the time. You guys interact really well already. So what were some highlights, some points during this that were like kind of make or break? Like this may be the end of it, or this could be like the point where we launch and do really awesome. What were some of those?
Well, the first highlight for me, and it was kind of a highlight and a low light, I guess, at the same time. That first day 1, was the first day that I navigated, because Jill and I swapped back and forth. And the very first point, I couldn't find it. And I was so frustrated and just felt like a total failure, a little bit of panic, where are we? So, Jill said, okay, if you're having a bad day, that means I have to have a good day. So like she kind of shepherded me through. We retraced our steps. We came back, we strategized, and that really helped us start our journey toward learning how to work through these challenges together. That night, if I would have been a kid at camp, I would have called my mom and told her to come pick me up because I thought, this is terrible. Why did I do this? And they tell you, all the veterans tell you that you're going to have at least one moment like that. But, I woke up the next morning and I said, I know we're going to finish. We're not going to give up. Obviously, we're not quitting. And we're going to start this day new. Today is a new day.
And then it was my turn to have a bad day because that was the day that we got lost in a wash for 2 hours. And, and it's one of those things, and and going into it, I knew I would fail. Like, I knew I would make mistakes. I knew that, I knew this was going to be hard. And so, Kristin was a great calming influence. And I can say that, and I can say that I wasn't really frustrated. I was more annoyed than frustrated because I knew where we needed to go when we were lost in the wash, because headings and distance don't lie. Maps lie. That map lied a lot that day. And, we lie to ourselves about what the map says. I lied to myself a lot that day. But I knew the heading and I knew the distance that we needed to go. But the problem we were in is we couldn't find a path out of where we were. And we couldn't find the path to where we needed to get. And, in retrospect, if we had maybe stood on the vehicle, because you see people doing that all the time in Rebelle, and they're holding their compasses, and we're like, you shouldn't hold your compass while you're standing on the vehicle. It doesn't work because, magnetic compass, vehicle close by, your compass isn't working properly. But I think the reason why you stand on your vehicle is to actually see what you're trying to see, because we just couldn't see a path out. And there were, some 4x4 vehicles that we encountered after 2 hours of literally going like this. And we took a wide miss. So we clicked our tracker to see what our longitude and latitude point was. We plotted it on the map. We knew exactly where we were and we knew exactly where we needed to go. We just, story of my life, you can't get there from here. And, but we encountered, it was a Ram 1500 and then a Jeep Wrangler 4xe, and our friend Mercedes Lilienthal was in the 4xe, and we were just like, we cannot find a path out. And so the Ram was like, we will find the path out. Now, the path out that they could find is it a path that we could take? Because, we're in a little itty bitty compact pickup truck, and they're in, a very large, I think it might have even been a Ram Rebel. They were in a very large off-road ready pickup truck. And so we're just like, all right, we will follow. And they're like, here's the thing. We'll be in front of you. You've got the Wrangler behind you. If you get into trouble, we will be there to help you. And so we were just like, okay, yeah. And they literally went into a riverbed. And I was just like, yeah, would not have done that in a million years. And they're like, and we had to go down into the riverbed kind of sideways and then back up and then go sideways back up. But that was the first thing that we needed to do that we ourselves wouldn't have thought to do. And so for me, that was kind of one, ask for help. And then two, sometimes you have to look for solutions that may not appear to be solutions.
So out of that story, I heard at least 2 really good song titles. Caught in a Wash. You can just take Anthrax, Caught in a Mosh and redo it, and there you go.
Caught in a Wash.
That's awesome. Can always count on you, dude.
And then the bit about standing on top and trying to survey. I was thinking that would make some more like a ballad, right? You could create I'm surveying, trying to find, right?
I'm standing on top of my Santa Cruz.
So the whole thing, the rally is 8 days, and it's 7 days on the road, right? Or 7 days in the wilderness, right?
It's more like the rally itself. It's like a 10-day period, and you have 2 nights that you're kind of doing pre-tech and tech. So you're at a hotel, then you transfer to base camp, and then you have day 0, which is your prologue day, and that kind of sets you up for the rest of the rally. But you're in base camp before day 0.
Okay.
So and then you have essentially like 2 days after that you're still in base camp.
Okay. And then in the middle of it, you have one night where you have to camp in the field. That I always find interesting because every year you see different teams, you know, because we all have friends that do this. Mercedes that you mentioned before, she is really awesome. And you mentioned Nicole and Alice were together, and we interviewed them last year or year before. And this is always an interesting one. You have to camp in the field, so you either set up a tent and camp, or you sleep in the vehicle. With the Santa Cruz, sleeping in the vehicle was probably not really an option for you guys. And we have videos of Jill practicing with the tent in the backyard. They are hilarious. I'll try to include that on this one again. So for you, for the two of you, we'll start with Kristin. What was that like preparing for that? Because it feels like to me, you know, beyond the learning to navigate and everything, that one you're on your own night seems like that would be I gotta have all this stuff, because you're just kind of assuming you're gonna need it, right? So Kristin, what was that like for you? And then Jill, what was it like for you?
Well, you know, it did sound kind of daunting when we first heard about it, but the truth is, you know, all of us were in it together. You know, all the vehicles had to end up in the same spot. And we all kind of, you know, we found our good friends that we've known since training back in April. One of them is from the Underpowered Hour. This is their 96 Defender that they drove. You know, we found our friends and we camped nearby. Now, to be clear, we camped in that crazy tent for every single night once tech inspection was over, you know, but when we had the overnight, there just wasn't a base camp. So we had meals ready to eat. And Jill boiled the water on her jet boil, and she made me dinner, very fancy, meal ready to eat, while I was navigating. I was putting together.
You know what the people in the military call MREs, right?
Yep.
They're never
MREs.
poop pouches. They're no poop pouches, because they have so much salt and stuff that you end up literally for a couple days. That's what they're called.
Did not have a problem.
Everybody's on their own on that aspect. But while Jill was making dinner, I was plotting our points for the next morning, because on the overnight, then we get our plot points the day before. So I was on the bed on the tailgate of the Santa Cruz plotting out our points for the next morning. A bunch of people were over in the hot spring pool, which looked really nice, but I knew we had to get our plot points done. And I had watched a video from last year with the overnight. Jill, what's it called? Why can't I remember?
Marathon night.
Marathon night. Thank you. Marathon night. I'd watched a video where Emmy Hall and Rebecca Donahue were plotting their points. They're like, yeah, it sounds like people are having fun over there, but we got to get this done so we can be ready for the morning. And so, you know, I took that to heart.
Yeah. No, I would agree. And it's funny because marathon night does seem kind of scary when you are thinking about it, because you're on your own. But yeah, no, it's not scary at all. You're literally in camp with everybody you've been camping with. And the only thing you have to do is make your own dinner and make your own breakfast. And I bought a little jet boil for people who aren't campers, because, by the way, I was not. It's basically a little propane tank on top of a burner. And I didn't realize this, so I had to borrow a match, but you have to like light it. So I had to borrow a match from somebody. So I will not make that mistake next time. I will buy a book of matches. Yeah, and then you light it, and then we bought a little collapsible pot, and you boil the water, and we bought so Kristin and I had gluten-free, dairy-free, like allergy diets while we were on there, and Kristin was doing an elimination diet. So we had the no fun snack car of gluten-free, dairy-free, no fun food. And so I think our saving grace though was they would give you, before you would leave in the morning, they would give you like carrot sticks and celery sticks and then fruit. And so we always took all of the fresh stuff And then we could pair that then that night with our MREs. And we had the healthy MREs that were good for you, in addition to having some vegetables and things. So, I mean, that was, figuring out that was probably the hardest thing for me. But otherwise, it was just like every other night, because we were in a camp with people. There were no lights. That was a little bit more difficult. I think there was one toilet for like 500 people. But other than that, it was really good.
Yeah, by the way, carrots and celery sticks taste really good if you can't eat anything else with a food elimination diet. You're like, the celery, it's so fresh.
Amazing.
Oh, now you guys know what it's like to be me all the time, actually, because I just feel like when I eat, it doesn't matter what it is. I'm kind of a goat. Whatever it is, it's awesome. So, I tell my son all the time, because he'll get picky, and I tell him all the time, dude, you don't get to be my size being picky about what you're eating.
That was hilarious. I mean, we also had the benefit of a Dometic refrigerator, like a portable refrigerator in our vehicle, and it kept stuff nice and cold. We had like cold sparkling water and cold coconut water and apples, and our carrots and celery went in there. So that was nice. Some people bring full meals in their refrigerators, like and grill while they're out there, but we did not mess with that.
I know. I'm like, I'm good. Just
Nope,
boil
we're
some
good.
water.
We're good with our MRE tonight.
Yep. And I had a whole crate of RX bars, which I could eat, but Kristin couldn't, because almonds. But yeah, so I was totally fine with, and it's like, I'm thinking about like next year, and I'm like, I probably would do an MRE again. Because those were actually pretty good, the ones that we got, I thought. But I need to boil the water a little bit longer next time. Got that. But yeah, I would just make sure to grab extras of the carrot sticks and celery sticks. And
matches.
Yeah, and matches.
Having that refrigerator is a big deal, because until you've spent a lot of time in the desert, or even just camping, where it's more than warm, when it's hot, that cold drink is there's nothing that tops that when you're out there like that. That's that's something that you learn, and you learn nice. Maybe right before the event, the days leading up to it, if you're going to go out camping, or if you're going to do something like Rebelle, chug water for the days leading up to it, to really build that up, and because once you're out there, what you have is it, and you gotta anyway. So on the wrap up, when you guys finally, it's the last day, there's the finish line is out there, you're going to get to it, and you're you packed up and you're starting to drive, and it's final stretch. What was it like first to get to know that it's the final stretch, but still know you got to do all this stuff to actually make that happen, but then also to drive through that inflatable finish line that they have? What was that? What was going on there? What was that like?
Jill, you talk about it first.
There you go.
Well, I drove us out and immediately got us stuck in the sand. So that's what that was like. That picture of me with the shovel, that was like within the first half an hour after leaving the start. No, I mean, it felt good, because you're going to finish, and and going into the sand, you're going to get stuck. Like, I went into it thinking I would get stuck at least once. We got stuck twice. But it's sand, until you figure things out, you're going to get stuck, and we had all the tools to get us unstuck. So I wasn't worried. And, but it felt good. It felt good to know that we were almost done. And it was funny because I wasn't ready to be done. I wanted to keep going. And so we're like, we hit like our final official checkpoint of the day, and we're heading back towards base camp. And there was this area that you could go in that had untimed checkpoints. So usually the way the checkpoints are is like, you have to get this by 10 o'clock. You have to get this by 11 o'clock. You have to get this by 12 o'clock. But there was this block of checkpoints that you could get anytime. So you could get them out of order. You could get them at the beginning of the day. That's where I originally got us stuck. Or you could get them at the end of the day. And so we're driving back and I was like, let's just go in and see if we can find one more. And Kristen's like, looking at me like, really? And I'm like, one more, just one more. I'll set my timer. We'll go in for like half an hour. And if we can't find it, we'll come back out. And she's like, fine. I was like, okay, yes. And so we like go in and like my watch is going off at a half an hour. She's like, Jill, it's a half an hour. We're done now. And I was like, come on. Let's just like try just a little bit longer. And she's like, no, we're done.
Nope. Nope. And to Jill's credit, you know, we really worked together so well. We learned how to work in tandem, like and how to play to each other's strengths. You know, so if I was navigating that day, you know, I might have something plotted and I'll say, well, I think we should go this way. Like, this is the route I think we should take. And I'd share it with Jill and she'd say, okay, you know, yeah, but, you know, why don't we consider this? Or if she was navigating and we just had a different way of navigating as well. Jill's very precise or I'm more big picture. I'll be like, you know, in about 3.1 kilometers, I think we're going to see this trail. This is what it looks like on the map, you know, and she's like, what is the exact number? But I was more looking for features where she is very precise, you know, but together that worked really well because we could figure out where we needed to be. And then when we finally did cross that finish line, I think we came to the other side better friends, tougher, and really appreciating this epic adventure. When we got to the end, Jill said, okay, I want to do this next year. I'm
ready. Let's go
better. Let's do it again. And I was like, just let me sit with this for a second because I need to absorb this and be in this moment right now. And then we can talk about it. But as soon as I got home, like within a day or two of getting home, I started dreaming about next year.
Yeah. Signs and portents.
I know. Well, you know, I mean, it's kind of one of those things. And I'm a marathon runner, so it's kind of the same thing with marathon running. There's some people who are one and done, and they're like, this was bucket list. Let's check it off. Let's be done. But then there are people who like do one, and you're like, no, I can do better next year. I can do it again. I've got like and like for me, like I'm in like mile 26 of the marathon, and I'm like, I should have done this at mile 1 to do better. I could have eaten this yesterday to do better. I could, you know, and so I'm already thinking about what I'm going to do next year to like do better. And so that was in a way kind of how I was feeling at the end of Rebelle. I was just like, you know, I probably didn't need 4 MREs. I only ate 1. You know, I could, you know, so I only needed to bring 1. You know, I didn't need X, you know, I could have done this differently. I should have brought this, you know, we should have been, you know, and so like literally I was already thinking about how we could do it better next year. And I was hoping that Kristin was kind of feeling the same way. I was hoping she was not a one and done because I'll be honest, I can't imagine doing this without her because she was such a great partner.
Yeah, Jill was amazing, you know, and we knew we thought we'd be a pretty good match, but you know, there's nothing like being with someone for 24 hours. That's not family, 24 hours a day for 10 days straight. It really makes you figure out what makes each other tick.
Well, congratulations to both of you. Really awesome that you did it, and really, I'll keep the fingers crossed that you do it again next year, and we'll just call that good. And yeah, so the Rebelle Rally happens every year. It's a serious challenge. It's not just a race where you're just trying to get from point A to point B as fast as possible. It's a real challenge and also a real team builder. And what I have seen out of this more than probably any other racing that I've looked at, so any other competitive event, is that the teams don't work against each other. Somebody gets stuck, other people will show up to help them. You guys had a great story about that sort of thing is what makes this really unique, because you really only hear about that after the fact in other events, and it's usually like, you know, their carburetor blew and somebody gave them one, but it's not like a really help you finish. It was it's that's really unique, I think, to the Rebelle. So yeah, really cool that you guys did it. Really hoping you'll do it again. And yeah, thanks, Jill, for coming on. Let's
you.
I guess we'll wrap this up. This is the part we suck at. We suck at coming up with like, let's end it. So anyway,
Well, that's it. Let's end it.
yeah, that's Jill. This is Aaron.
And this is Kristen.
And this is Drive Mode Show.
We'll see you soon.
Hit subscribe.